Today, we're diving into massive news for anyone dreaming of Mexico. There's been a big announcement from Mexico's Secretaría de Relaciones Exteriores, Exterior Relations, that could shake up residency requirements as early as 2026. This just dropped recently, and if it goes through, it's proposed. But if this goes through, the income and savings thresholds for both temporary and permanent residency could drop significantly, making Mexico more accessible for expats, retirees, digital nomads, anyone who wants to get residency in Mexico. This is a video that comes highly requested from our followers. We recently put out a video about the financial requirements in Mexico, and a bunch of people said, hey, did you hear about the new proposed thing? And so in this video, we're going to clear up the rumors, we're going to navigate the process, and we're going to tell you about the proposed UMA changes, the UMA standard, why it matters, and what to look forward to. So first, let's cover, just as a recap, how the residency system works currently in 2025. To get temporary or permanent residency in Mexico, you typically apply through a Mexican consulate outside the country, in your home country, in Canada, the US, wherever you're from, proving financial solvency through either a steady monthly income or a savings balance. These requirements are tied to Mexico City's minimum wage. It's a formula, and it's been rising fast. Over the past 5 years, the minimum wage has jumped by about 110%, meaning the residency thresholds have more than doubled. And in my previous video, I was talking about how it's going to go up again in 2026. But with this UMA change, that could basically negate that. So as a reminder for 2025, currently, for temporary residency, you need to show around $4,000 per month in income or around $70,000 in savings or investments over the past 12 months. For permanent residency, it's higher, about $7,000 a month in income or about $270,000 in savings. Obviously, it's pegged to the Mexican peso, so it fluctuates with the exchange rate. And also, these numbers vary by consulate because each one uses its own exchange rate and interpretation of the rules. It's been kind of well known that some of the ones in Mexico, some of the consulates in Mexico have lower thresholds, and some of the ones in the north have higher thresholds, okay? And then if you're bringing your family, you need to add around $1,400 per dependent, like a spouse or minor children, based on 100 times the daily minimum wage. You'll also need documentation like marriage and birth certificates to prove the family bond, something to keep in mind. But now, here's the game changer. On July 25th, 2025, the Secretary of Foreign Relations, or Relaciones Exteriores, announced in the DOF, the Diario Oficial de la Federación, that Mexican consulates should start using the UMA, Unidad de Medida y Actualización, instead of the minimum wage to calculate residency financial requirements. This was supposed to take effect around August 9th, 2025, but consulates have not fully adopted it yet, so the change is likely coming in 2026. Let's break down what UMA is and why it's a big deal. UMA is a financial index introduced in 2016 to calculate things like taxes, fines, and government fees. Unlike the minimum wage, which has been rising by about 12% or more annually, UMA grows much more slowly, about 3 to 5% per year. In 2025, the UMA is set at 113 Mexican pesos per day, 113.14 Mexican pesos to be exact. This stability makes UMA a more predictable benchmark, which is huge for planning your move. If consulates stick with the minimum wage model, 2026 projections show temporary residency requiring around $4,800 to $5,000 or more per month, or around 85,000 in savings. Permanent residency could hit 8,200 per month or 330,000 in savings. That's pretty high even for an American. But if UMA is adopted, these numbers could drop significantly. And by the way, I say for an American, MyLatinLife, we have clients from Dubai, Australia, Canada, Europe. So I know the majority of people watching this are Americans, but we take on clients from all over the world that want to come and get residency in Mexico. And of course, salaries and savings are higher in the US than pretty much anywhere else in the world. So imagine how much more difficult it is for a Canadian or someone from Southern Europe or just someone with lower income or from a country, with lower incomes than the US to try to hit those benchmarks. Like who can show $8,000 a month other than Americans for the most part? So this UMA thing could really be a game changer and make Mexico residency a lot more accessible for a lot more people. So what would UMA-based requirements look like in 2026? Using 2025 UMA values and exchange rate of 18.8 Mexican pesos to the US dollar, here's the math. For temporary residency, the monthly income requirement is 680 times 113.14, which equals about 4,100 US dollars per month. The savings or investment requirement is 11,460 times 113, which comes out to about 69,000 US dollars. Okay. And then you want to add a little bit more for family members as well. Assuming UMA rises by 3 to 5% in February 2026, we estimate temporary residency will require around 4,250 US dollars or around 72,000 in savings. So it's so that would put it at basically where it is now. And at least that's better than it going up another 10-20% in 2026, which is the projection. So compared to the minimum wage model, that's a savings of about $750 per month or about $12,000 in savings for the temporary residency. Okay, and $1,000 a month or $40,000 in savings for permanent residency. These lower, more stable thresholds could make residency accessible to more people, especially retirees or those with fixed incomes. Note that these are estimates based on the 2025 UMA values and exchange rates. Actual 2026 numbers will depend on the UMA's annual adjustment and consulate exchange rates. Here's the tricky part. Even if UMA is adopted federally, not every consulate might use it right away. Mexican consulates actually have a lot of autonomy. So some might switch to UMA in 2026, while others stick with the minimum wage or apply their own spin. Hopefully it's universally adopted, otherwise things are going to get even more confusing. For example, consulates in Boise or New Orleans have historically accepted lower thresholds, like $3,700 per month for temporary residency, while others like Toronto might ask for 6,900 Canadian dollars. This variation comes from different exchange rates and interpretations of the rules. There's also talk of standardizing requirements across consulates, which would be a huge win for clarity. But for now, you need to do your homework. In the past, we've recommended a strategy of being flexible and considering applying at a consulate with lower thresholds if you're close to the cutoff. And if you think you're not going to meet the cutoff regardless, there may be other pathways to Mexico via, say, a job invitation, and that's something that we can help with as well at MyLatinLife. This might be a good point to mention that MyLatinLife is a full-scale immigration consultancy. We help people get residency and citizenship in Mexico. Me, myself, I'm a permanent resident of Mexico. I started as a temporary resident. I was on temp for 4 years. I renewed to permanent residency. So I've been through this process myself, and we've helped 100 plus people do the same, acquire residency in Mexico, acquire citizenship in Mexico, either via naturalization or via descent if you have parents or grandparents from Mexico. So if this is of interest to you, working with somebody to make this happen and get that residency card in your hands, becoming a Mexican resident, there's a link in the description to book a call with us, and we can answer all your burning questions, and ultimately we can provide you with the service of getting residency and citizenship in Mexico. So if you're ready to take action, make things happen, build a plan, figure this out, link in the description, book a call with us. Happy to help. Moving on with the video, there's a lot of misinformation out there, so let's clear some things up. First, some people are confusing the UMA change with Mexico's new digital visa system. The digital system, also announced in the DOF, is for visitor visas for nationals of countries like Brazil or places that need a visa to enter Mexico. If you're from the US, Canada, the UK, Japan, Schengen, or Australia, you don't need a visitor visa. You get an FMM, or a Forma Migratoria Multiple, which is basically a tourist permit upon arrival. Remember, not everyone has visa-free to Mexico. A lot of places don't have visa-free Mexico. Residency visas still require an in-person consulate visit. Remember, a residence visa is different than a tourist permit, so keep that in mind. If you are married to a Mexican citizen, or you're a parent or child of a Mexican citizen or resident, this might allow you to start the process in Mexico. But if you have no family ties to Mexico, most likely you're going to have to start the process at the consulate. Second, there's a rumor that you must live in Mexico to apply for residency. That's false. Mexican law hasn't changed to require this, and you can still apply at a consulate abroad without living in Mexico. You can even apply without even having visited Mexico before, though a history of travel to Mexico is only going to help your case and help the narrative about how you love Mexico, and that's why you want to live there, that's why you want to retire there, etc. Don't let fear or rumors guide your decisions. That's why it's so important to work with a good immigration facilitator like MyLatinLife. If UMA becomes the standard, it could open Mexico's doors to more people. Retirees with pensions, digital nomads with variable incomes, and expats with moderate savings could suddenly qualify. The lower, more predictable requirements means fewer financial surprises, making it easier to budget for your move. Mexico is already a top destination, with over 1 million expats drawn to its affordable living, vibrant culture, high-quality healthcare, and cities like Mérida, Puerto Vallarta, Oaxaca, Mexico City. There's so many amazing cities in Mexico, depending on your vibe and whether you're single or a family or retiree. There's something for everybody in Mexico, and these lower thresholds could even boost local economies by attracting more residents to spend on housing, services, and goods. But it also means you'll need to act fast. Popular areas like the Yucatan are seeing huge growth in expat communities, which could strain resources, could lead to housing prices increases. So the faster you get your residency, the better. Probably the most important reason to get your residency early is because you'll probably start on temp, unless you're a retiree, and then you'll be working towards permanent residency. So the faster you get the temporary residency, that's the faster that you're going to start the clock, the 4-year clock, to work towards permanent residency. You know, we have a lot of consulting calls with people that say, I'm not quite retiring yet, I'm 55, whatever. I want to retire to Mexico in a couple of years. And I always tell these people, well, you might as well get your residency now, because there's no physical presence required in Mexico to maintain the residency other than renewing the card at the renewal dates. So you don't have to maintain physical presence in Mexico. You're working towards permanent residency. So even if you're not retiring for 4 years, or even if you're not moving down to Mexico for another year or two, just get the residence now while it's easy, and get it while you qualify, because things are changing all the time. That's why you're watching this video Things change in Mexico every year, and we see this in other countries as well. Panama shut the door, Paraguay changed their thing. Every country is constantly making it more difficult for residents as they're catching up with this explosion in mobility that people now have with the ability to make money online and to be abroad and to be remote. So get your residency now while you qualify and lock it in, because you never have to re-qualify financially. When you renew to permanent residency, you don't have to re-qualify financially. So qualify now while you meet the requirements, because you never know if 4 or 5 years ago, if you're going to meet the requirements or what the program is going to look like. If you're ready to make the move, here's some tips on how to prepare. Take a look at your financial documents, start gathering your documents, budget for the UMA thresholds, see if it's really important that you're only going to meet the UMA threshold or if you'd also meet the minimum wage threshold. Ideally, you're meeting both so that you're going to qualify either way. And by the way, qualifying with savings is easier than qualifying with income. So if you can qualify with savings, all the better. And finally, stay informed. Work with experts, hire a vetted immigration facilitator like MyLatinLife to navigate the paperwork and the consulate quirks, make all the appointments, gather your documents, put everything in the right order that the Mexican government wants to see it, to maximize your chances of getting that Mexico residency in your hand. I promise, once you have that residency card, it's going to be well worth it, and you're going to wish you did it years ago. We are tracking these changes closely, and we're going to keep sharing updates as we learn more about this UMA change, this proposal, as this maybe becomes law, and any updates with regards to Mexico. So please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop a comment in the comment section below with any anecdotes or stories that you might have. We love hearing from people. And again, book a one-on-one consultation to guide you step by step. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.